Welcome to the last talk of this day, which is held by Baptiste Daroussin from the FreeBSD ports team. And the talk is called FreeBSD towards ports v2, trimming the biggest bonsai, whatever that means. Please.
Hello, I'm Baptiste Daroussin. I'm a FreeBSD committer, both source and ports. I'm responsible for package-ng, and the last 3 years we have done a couple of small changes in the port tree, and I'm going to talk about that and to explain what we have done, why, what is coming next, and what changes you can expect in the next years. So first, I'll give you a couple of numbers about the port tree. So the numbers should be 2 days old, which should be quite accurate. We have more than 24,000 ports. A few of them are broken, not that much. We have a couple of deprecated ports, so if you want to save them before I rip them out, have a look at them and try to either find a new upstream or look why it's deprecated and what it's going to remove. The reality is the package we managed to build, because on all those ports some are just for one architecture or one other. So the reality is last Wednesday the latest build was around 23,000 packages built for 8 and 9. We have a bit less packages for 10 and 11 because mostly it's Clang refusing to build because it's using bad codes, and there is a lot of errors you can fix. Most of the time it's quite easy to fix. So if you want to improve that, you can just go to Portsmon and have a look at the packages that doesn't build and try to get one, fix it. The port tree is not only used on FreeBSD, it's also used on Dragonfly since 1 year, I think, about. And they managed to get 20,000 packages, almost 21,000, so they are pretty close to the same numbers as we have on FreeBSD. And I think there is a couple of issues that have been fixed recently, so next build should be even better. We have, since December, created new branch of packages for new branch in the port tree for which we build packages. It's called Quarterly. It's a branch where we keep stable ports for 3 months and maintain them for 3 months. So we had we just commit into that branch build fixes, security fixes, and runtime fixes. We maintain them for 3 months. Right now, we just build them for 10. So if you're using package-ng and you can change the repository, instead of saying I want the latest packages, you replace latest by quarterly, and you get packages that just get the security fixes. In 3 months, it will be a new snapshot from the port tree, and we will rebuild packages on that, and we will keep them for 3 months. It's an experiment. We want to provide stable packages because a lot of people are expecting them, but it's also a lot of work for committers to be able to maintain that list. So we are experimenting one branch by one branch for now. So one branch, 3 months. If it works, if we manage to do that without too much workload, then we will probably push the support for 1 year, and we will maintain 4 different branches during 1 year. So the port tree is great because it allows us to have all those packages, all those stuff. But the port tree has a lot of problems, and I'd like to say had a lot of problems. We have solved a lot of them in the last 3 years. So it has bad reputation in some other, compared to some other package system. Why? Because we have a lot of deprecated code. We are very good at adding new things all the time, but we never remove the old things. And we never make sure that all the port tree is up to date with the new things. We have changed that. Make is not the best tool to do what we do with the port tree. But we have it, so we will keep it. But we have to know how it works exactly, how it does things in the background, so that the port tree is efficient in terms of performance, in terms of features, using that tool. That's something that was left behind for a long time in the port tree, and there was a lot of inefficient code and a lot of inefficient behavior in the ports because a lot of people don't really know how makes work. It's not just some variables and do things. It's way more behind. For example, we have way too many targets defined. I don't remember the exact number, but in the basic port, you have something like 300 targets defined. And all of this costs because Make has to go through all of them. And with BMake, it's better because BMake has, if I remember well, a hash table to how to get them, so you can get it fast. But with the old Make we had, it was a linked list. So each time you have to go through the whole list again and again and again. We have too many files to parse, and we parse those files too many times. Each time you do include bsd.port.something, it will reparse all the bsd.port.mk. This is totally inefficient. As the port tree has grown, there was little care done in the infrastructure to be able to have a clean separation and between what you predefine, all the variables, all the things, and then what you will do. So bsd.port.mk has become a huge mess of things, and it's really hard to say, oh, I need to add this target, I will add it in this place, not in this place, because, I don't know, it should be done before pre-MK or post-MK. It's really hard because it can blow up because one variable is not yet defined. So we have to separate to make sure that all targets are defined only when all variables are defined. We had a lot of old, badly maintained ports. Basically, when someone is not interested anymore in a port, you just say, okay, I drop maintainership on it, I put ports at, or I just don't reply the mail, so I still have my maintainership on it, but I don't do anything. And we keep those ports in the port tree. They are often broken, outdated, not using the new features, not up to date with the new way we do things in the port tree. And they are taking a lot of time in the clusters, they are taking a lot of time everywhere. So we don't need to have the port tree being something like Web Archive. We just need things that works and that people cares about. We had some arbitrary limitation. For example, someone one day decided that FreeBSD could not load libraries where the name is .so.1.3.4. Someone decided that we can only have one number after .so. This is totally wrong. We can properly handle whatever name is the name of the library. But in the port tree, we decided in that case to limit everything to that name, meaning that we have a lot of hacks everywhere so that the port, when it builds the library, change the name to just have one number after .so. We have a lot of complex code. Because we have added new features or trying to fix things on the flow without a large vision of what do you really want that thing, how we want that thing to behave, then we are building more and more complex code. So we need to, and we have to go through all that complex code, try to figure out what is the real problem it tries to fix, and write something cleaner and simpler about that. We don't have anything to enforce policy. For example, if we had a new macro that does a lot of fancy good things, we had nothing to say, okay, I had to change the whole post tree so that we don't have 3, 4, 5 different versions of something doing the same thing. We have a lot of inconsistencies in the name, in the options, in the way we are trying to fix things in the port. For example, force the ports to put the PC file in the right place. Each time, people are reinventing the same thing in a different way, and sometimes in a bad way. So one of the first things we have done has been to trim all the dead code, because we had a lot of dead code in the port tree in order to make the bsd.port.mk more readable and more performant. So, for example, we have removed code that was handling make version. There was a change between FreeBSD 4 and FreeBSD 5 in make, and we had ports to handle that. We have a code to handle that. That's totally not necessary anymore. We have removed that. We do not handle any category page for a long time anymore, but we still had a huge code to handle that. We have removed that. We have a lot of obsolete macros that are not in use anymore in the post tree, but we still have code to handle them. We have removed that. We have fetch in the base system for very, very long now. So we removed the ability to fall back to FTP and all the code that goes with that. We have changed the option framework. I will speak a bit more about it, but we have changed the option framework. So we have removed all the complex code to handle the old option framework. And we had a lot of old, unnecessary anymore uses, like uses to handle X3. X3 is gone for long. We have Xorg for very long, so we have removed that. So we have also tried to figure out how we can improve our make usage. Each time we can save 1 second on the build thing is very important for us, because 1 second times the number of ports can give you 1 more day to build a whole port tree. So one of the things that has recently been committed into the framework is we do not anymore define target all the time. We define the target, and then we create the target, and then we really define them if they are needed by the port. We don't fall back anymore on do nada, which will run the bin through for nothing. We just say, okay, this port doesn't need to do anything in post-patch. We just don't define post-patch. That allows us to remove around 80 targets on the basic port and save a lot of time on the cluster. We have reduced the number of shell invocation. In make, each line on a target will invoke a shell. So it's better to have inline shell, but the problem of inline shell is pretty ugly to read. One of the things we have done to reduce the number of shell invocation is to basically remove all this inline code and all the complex targets, move it into a script, and having one line calling that script. So we invoke the shell only one. That saves a lot of time on the clusters. We are trying to reduce the size of the infrastructure, the size of the files that will be parsed by make. One of the things is we have introduced what we call the uses. Uses basically is a very, very small make file, which is loaded if and only if a port's needed. So basically, it says it's try to do one thing, so it's easy to read. You know exactly what it concerns and how to. You can easily understand it. You can easily maintain it, and when you create a port, you just say, I use this feature, so only in that case I will pass this file. That reduces the size of bsd.port.mk, that reduces the number of things we have to pass, and that's better for performance. We have also reorganized a bit the code. It's not finished yet, but we have I have pushed all the target or most of the target definition in the end of bsd.port.mk, so that when we are actually doing something with the target, we are sure that all the variables, all the testing, whatever you can do on variables list, whatever, is done before. And it's very easier now to say, okay, this part is for the target. I know what I'm going to modify there, and I know the impact on the rest. One of the other thing is we often do modification on files, like changing the chebang, changing stripping binaries, converting from those to Unix, and we used to do that file by file. If you have a port, you're converting from those to Unix, and you're doing that on, I don't know, 100 source files, it's highly inefficient. So most of the new code try to always use Xargs, and that improves a lot of time in the clusters. We are now trying, yes? Well, when we first tried to build on the new machines, the port tree, we were around 24 hours for a full build. Now we are 18 hours for a full build. So we saved around 6 hours. But it's hard to define what exactly helped in what place, because we also improved the code of the builder itself since. But basically we save around 6 hours. So we are now doing some cleanup in the port tree to avoid keeping all the old stuff we don't care anymore because it's broken or whatever. In 3 years we have removed around well, it's a bit more now. We have removed about 5,000 ports from the port tree, and the number of ports we have is still growing. We have finally managed to remove GNOME 1. Yeah, we still had GNOME 1. We removed KDE 3. We still have XMMS, and unfortunately we still have at least one user of XMMS, so I'm not sure it will be removed soon. We have also reduced port duplication. A lot of ports are duplicated each time they are changing their API or have a lot of change in the API, so that we can still have the ports that have not been switched yet to the new version of the said library be able to build and be usable. The problem is, one day all the ports using the old libraries are using the new one, and no one cares about the new one. So we kept having, for ICU, for example, we had 5 different versions in the port tree, only one was used. ICU is a complicated beast. It takes a lot of time to build. We don't need, so we now try to take care about the versions we have in the port tree and to remove all versions. We also try to avoid having always a numbered version. We can have something like, if you have a look at VirtualBox, you don't have VirtualBox version A, version B, you have VirtualBox and VirtualBox Legacy, so that each time we go to a new version, we do it we push the old version into Legacy. And that avoids us forgetting about removing the old version we don't need when it's not supported anymore. Reduce code complexity. Well, Make is can quickly be quite complex and quite unreadable. Trying to factorize code in Make and reuse code in Make is also very complicated. Make is not done to really be able to factorize. But we still managed to do it. We had complex code to handle the different build system like Gmake, Make, Ninja, and whatever other things exist. They were all basically running the same command with just a few arguments different. So what we did is, okay, it's the same command, few arguments different. Why do we hardcode each time? Why do we duplicate it code, and why do we hardcode each time the name of the builder? Just create a new macro, which is the name of the builder, and if you have arguments you do not support, just overwrite the other variables. Doing that, we removed a lot of duplicated code. The other good thing about that is now, if we had to change, we had to add a new environment variable for the build system. We just have to do it in one place, and all the build targets will benefit from that in one place. Before that, we used to add it for gmake, and then we forgot about Ant, and we forgot about Ruby whatever, and things like this. We also, with the uses, we also try to share the tips that usually you'll had from a committer that knows that, oh, I know that this is often failing, you should do that and duplicate that code in each port, or create a very complicated thing in a bsd.something.mk. For example, we had GNOME hack, which was in bsd.gnome.mk. You could have only used GNOME, so people working on something totally different than GNOME most of the time didn't figure out that we already have something to fix their problem, but it was in GNOME. So what we did is we extract that into a small uses. We try to name it with a name explaining what it does. We document it in the handbook, and now we have a lot of things to help you doing things. For example, we have dest hack. That's something I stole from the OpenBSD ports, which is something helping with stagifying ports that are not DSD aware. I will speak again about stage in a few minutes. We have passfix, which is what was called before GNOME hack, which basically goes through the make files for auto-tooled port and try to figure out common paths that are wrong and that doesn't matches what FreeBSD wants. We have UID fix, which allows our make system to install things as a user. We have shebang fix to be able to fix all the shebang so that we point to the right place instead of each time having each maintainer adding a new set something. We have fixed lib depends, so now we do not require having .so.1 number, but we could have a full normal line. We have almost fixed libtool, because for the same reason we had a problem with lib depends, we had a problem with libtool because someone told the libtool guy that we had this limitation we don't have, in fact. So they wrote libtool that way. The problem is we don't have this limitation, and if you go through glib ports, for example, you will discover that with our version of libtool, every single minor version will bump the library number, which is very not good. That's really something you don't want, because you will end up having to rebuild all the ports depending on glib for nothing. What we end up doing is, instead of going through why libtool does that, why we have this problem, we say, oh, let's write a new hack. And we wrote LT hack, LTver hack, I don't remember, both. Yeah. So we wrote a couple of hacks, plus all the things that were done manually, port by other people, where we could just fix libtool. So what we ended up doing is we created a new uses which is called libtool. What it does is it goes through all the configuration files, all the GNU configure files, and apply a couple of set lines to fix libtool. And we don't have this problem anymore. And we are working on upstreaming the change so that our main libtool will be properly working on FreeBSD by default. And we have, now that we have the stage directory, we can automate a lot of tasks we couldn't before. That helps to enforce policies or help maintainers to check, for example, if binaries are stripped, if there is a script with a wrong shebang, if we are referencing bad paths, if all of this kind of QA. And it also helps to simplify things. Until now, we were installing everything on the system and then we try to go through each man page to compress it. So we had to define all the man page. Right now, we can just go through the stage directory and say, oh, there is new man page. I can take all of them, compress them, do what I want to do with them. And we will soon do the same thing for the info page. We have improved the QA. With the stage directory, we have the new stage QA I was just saying about before. It's not activated by default because it costs a lot of time. But if you're a maintainer, just add developer equal yes into your make.conf and then it will be activated by default. It checks a lot of things. I really recommend that you add developer equal yes into your make.conf. We have also been able to handle the stage configuration, the stage support very, very quickly. I think, if I remember well, in package source it took something like 3 years. It's not finished. I thought I've seen a mail saying it was finished recently. Okay. Okay. So what we have done is, in 4 months, we have converted 62% of the port tree. And my plan is to say, in 4 months, everything should be converted. If something is not converted, there should be only one reason, a bug in the framework, and then we have to fix that bug. If not, that means no one cares about this port, and this port will be removed from the port tree. And we have the new bsd.sanity.mk to help people to keep in touch with the new things, to be aware about the new way of doing things, the new way of defining a feature or a functionality in the port. We now report them what is deprecated, what is new. We can report them that they should use this uses because their port have a desktop file, so you probably want to register the desktop file in post installation. We can also warn the users that without NLS is deprecated and unsupported, we now have, with a new option, a very convenient way to define always the same way and consistent way global options like I don't want docs, I don't want, it's not, oh, this time it's no port docs, oh no, this time it's without X11, oh, this time it's I don't want something. So we can warn the user when we remove things, and we can warn maintainer when things have changed or things are not supported anymore. And we have added 2 new shiny targets which will help a lot of people. Make plist that will just create the plist for you. You just have to review, add eventually some plist sub, but that does it. And make checker funds, you do an update. You do make stage, you have everything in your stage, you do make checker funds, and it just gives you what files you have forgotten in your plist. And last thing, we are now able to package without the root credential. So you can just go somewhere, say make package, and you have a package 100% built as a user. We have improved consistencies through the new option framework. So what it does is basically allow the normal option we had before, but it also had the single option. You say you need one and only one option, 1 or 0 among n options. We have the radio, which is 1 and only 1 in that list. Group option is just for convenience and saying, okay, this is all concerning the same thing. I can choose how many I want in them, but I want them to be packed together so that for the user it's cleaner. And we have multi-option, which say I need at least 1, but probably more in that options. We also added a feature few people knows about. Only the Apache port is using it for now. But if you're a maintainer and you had the package -help in your port tree, you have the dialog for the option, you hit F1 and you have a new dialog opening with a description, a help you can provide, a long help you can provide on the port. So if you're a maintainer, you think your options are complex to understand, just add this. We are deprecating knobs. All the knobs are inconsistent, used or not, so we are removing it. We will go through option for everything. We promote uses instead of adding all the time new thing into bsd.pod.mk. Just write a new use. We can add it, test it. The good thing is if you modify your use, you don't break all the port tree, but only a couple of ports, so it's easier to maintain, easier to get in, because even if it's half broken, half working, we can add it and then improve on the flow. And we have introduced default version. That's for users. Right now, if you want to specify the version of PHP you want when you're building, you have one thing to add to make.conf. But if you want to specify the version of Ruby you want, it's another thing, another string. Now you have just one macro, which is default version, and you say Lua equal 5.2, and you have 5.2 by default. You say Python equal 3.3, and you have Python 3 by default. And every single thing with multi-version will go through that way slowly. So we are, each time we are improving those ports, we are adding the support into default version. So for users, there is only one thing to care about. We have added option helpers. I just show a quick example on how it helps. It helps in two things. First, it's shorter, so it's easier to read. Second, it avoids having to include twice bsd.pod.mk, which improve the speed of make because it doesn't have to parse it twice. And last, I find it more readable and more understandable. We have way more options than configure. We have configure enable, configure with, we have configure off, configure on. We can do that for CMake, for all the environment variables, for a lot of things. Have a look at it's in the handbook. Have a look at the handbook. You have a lot of helpers. Most of the time now, you just need this single include in the end, nothing more. How things were done before we had staging. So basically, when you start, you just fetch. So it tries to fetch. Then the next target is usually extract and all that goes with. You extract, you configure, you build. You think you will install, but you mess your system. There is different way of messing your system with the old way. First, there is the files that are not properly tracked. That's a problem, but you can live with it. It's not good, it should be fixed, but you can live with it. But there is also make install fails in the middle. It has installed a couple of files somewhere in your file system. It has broken a lot of things, other things, and then you end up with a non-working system. If it's getx that fails, you end up with half of your ports not working because you don't have libgetx installed, but you have some things from getx still in your file system. How things goes now with the new way of doing things with staging. We still fetch, we still extract, we still configure, we stage, and then we can decide to package from the stage. No need to install. Or we can install. The install phase, what it does is it makes sure that the stage is clean, that all the things I want to install are in the stage, and does installation only when the stage is clean. So if getx fails, it won't be installed on your system, and you still have the old version of getx, and your system is still working. This is with package-ng. With package install, it's a bit different because package install. So what next? We are dropping support for package install. Package install is now the bottleneck for improvement in the port tree and for improvement in the way we handle the packages. We are doing way two dirty things right now in the package, even in package.ng, just because we have to support the way package install did things. So we will drop it, and we will drop it for all releases of FreeBSD at the same time. We were aiming at doing that for May this year, but we haven't announced it, so we don't have time. We don't leave time enough for people to migrate. So we will probably push that to September this year. The reason why we aimed at May is because every single version of FreeBSD release but 8.3 has a bootstrap and is able to install package automatically. But FreeBSD 8.3 doesn't have, and FreeBSD 8.3 is end of line in May. We will provide sub-packages. Instead of having tons of Qt ports, tons of PHP ports, you will have just one PHP port. You do make, and it will create all the different packages. And we will provide a way for the user to say, I just want to build this package. It will say, okay, this package needs this sub-package, and only build what you need. You won't build everything, but you have one single port to maintain, and you can create multiple ports out of that. We will add provide requires. People are often asking why we don't have flavors yet, because OpenBSD has flavors. Provide requires is a way to do the same thing, but it's, in my opinion, way better. Provide require with, instead of saying, I depend on Perl version, I say I require Perl, the binary Perl. So there is no reason why I need this particular version of Perl or this particular version of Perl. Right now, on our package system, when you install a Perl script, it will depend on a version, a precise version of Perl. So you just say now, require Perl, and the Perl say, I do provide Perl, and you can have it properly. You can also say, I'm ImageMagick, so I provide ImageMagick, and I provide both ImageMagick and ImageMagick without X11. And ImageMagick X11 without X11 will just provide ImageMagick without X11. So if you need ImageMagick with X11, you say, I require ImageMagick with X11. Doing that, you can do exactly what the flavors are doing, but in a simpler way. We will provide auto plist. Maintaining the plist is painful for most of people. The thing is, the plist is very important for package install because package install sees it as a script, and it follows the sequence to do things. With the end of line of package install, we don't have the limitation we had before on the plist. So we will provide a way to say, pack everything that is in the stage directory. You don't need to specify because I know that. And we'll provide a way to say, oh, wait, I need to apply this keyword I used to do in the plist for this file. So you will just say, I have a special file. All the rest, you pack it normally. It's a bit like what Debian does in the build system. And we are going to cross-compilation and to have a working cross-compilation. Right now, I'm able to build on an AMD 64 machine, don't remember the number, it was quite close to 10,000, to cross-build 10,000 ports for ARM. And I'm going further, and I want to be able to cross-build at least 90% of the ports tree. But cross-compilation is quite complicated. It's simpler to do one by one. But if you want to automate that and to make sure that the framework is properly getting the right dependencies and not doing too many things, it's very complicated. And right now, all what I've done is not able to go through the ports tree like this because it will require too many manual things from the users. Basically, when you are cross-compiling, you need a target arch. You need to say, I'm building for MIP64, whatever. You need a destination directory where your libraries and binaries for the target are installed. But you also need to have the dependencies, smart dependencies. because if my port is depending on Python and not linking to Python, I just need at the moment I build the port the native Python. I don't need the other one. So I don't need to install the other one. But if I'm using libxml2, I will need to be linked to the version, the target version. So I'll have to have libxml2 install both on the native and the target. Or sometimes it's just I only need the library on the target. That's quite complicated to do. We have two ways to handle cross-compilation. We have cross-compilation and we have emulation. We want cross-compilation for everything. So basically we'll have a new target which is X build safe and say this port is safe for cross-compilation, just do it. But there is some very complicated ports to cross-build. And for those ports, if we can't manage to have cross-compilation working, we will just mark them as unsafe. In that case, it will switch. Instead of cross-compiling, we will just use the QEMU user emulation for this particular port. We have a lot of work that has been done by Stacy Son on QEMU user emulation. So the BSD user emulation, at least for FreeBSD, is now working for MIPS. And we have a modified version of Poudriere to be able to handle this. And we have a new kernel module that is not committed yet, but will be soon, which is able to say, okay, if you are going to run this, for example, a MIPS64 binary, then prepend QEMU the right line before that. So we can use, without having to emulate the whole box, we can use emulation to be able to handle those ports. And we can go even further. We can say, okay, every binaries but the compiler will be run through the emulation. So we can still have the cross-build compiler running at the native speed and have the rest emulated, so that the overhead of the emulation is not that high. That's all. Do you have any questions? Which one? It is in. It is in. That's a summary of what I did for the last 3 years and what is coming. So basically, most of the cleanup has been done. There is still a lot to do, but yeah, all done except what was, well, except that part. And right now, for the staging, we only have 62% of the ports. So we have still around 9,000 ports to convert. Yeah, the handbook is up to date. We try to make it up to date. It was lagging a bit behind for 2 years, last 2 years, because I'm not very good at documenting. But right now we are. But right now we have people that are going through my commit and saying, this needs to be committed, this needs to be documented. So yes. Overhead. For package install, we do that because package install has no way to do another way. But package ng is able to use the directory as a package. So what it does is basically the same as creating the package, but instead of putting everything into a tar file, it puts everything into your file system. Yes? There is no problem. Just go through the problem you want and send a PR. And if your PR is still in GNATS after 2 or 3 weeks, go through IRC and yells to someone and say, hey. But yeah, we have a lot of PR and we lack people to go through GNATS and have a look at PRs. And try to tag them and commit them. But basically, just go on the mailing list and say, why my PR is still not there? Is it not good? Is it, or just try to find a committer somewhere in the channel or a mail directly. You know that, I don't know, you have something using Java, then you send a mail to one of the people you know that is using Java, for example, Greg Lewis or whoever is interested in Java because he works on that, and you say, what do you think about that? The thing is also we have now a lot of good infrastructure to help people which are non-committers to work on our pod tree. We have Redpods. Redpods is basically a repository where you push it's a SVN repository. You can put your work in progress ports, and then you can say, okay, try to build it on every single version of FreeBSD supported, and it will send you a mail saying, okay, you have this problem here, this problem here. So you can prepare everything properly into Redpods. You don't have to create your own, to set up your own tinderbox. You don't have to do too many things yourself on your box. You can use the resources we have and we propose to the users. Yeah. No, redpods.org. It should be one day redpods.freebsd.org. Yes. I have no idea. I'm not a maintainer of Redpods. I think there is already something for that. Bernard, I don't remember because I don't use much Redpods. I have my own build system, but I think there is an option. It's not trivial, and I'm not sure it's documented. But probably send a mail to DK or Matt and ask them. Yes. It's on my laptop and my head, because now the reason is because it's rather complex right now. So it needs a modified version of Poudriere. It needs a lot of manual patches into the post tree. It's really not user friendly yet. And it needs a lot of cleanup because I've tried a lot of direction. I have been looking at what package source is doing. I have been looking at how Gbian is doing, how others are doing. So I tried different direction until I have something that is able to build more than 5,000 packages. With 5,000 packages, including complex one, now I think I have a good direction. I need to clean up to make that user-friendly, and as user-friendly as we can, and then, yes, it will be available. Right now, you can cross-build pretty straightforward. I can send or put a wiki for that for MIPS using emulation, because Poudriere is already knowing about all these QEMU things, and you just have to grab stasis and patches for the kernel. There is a new kernel module and there is a new bin module, and it does all the magic by itself. So MIPS works, but for the others not yet. And QEMU user emulation for ARM is totally broken, and someone needs to have a look at it. And basically it's not that hard. It's mapping syscalls. So you have a huge use case and say, oh, I have this syscall. It should be that in ARM. I will call this one, which is a local one, and whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a problem for specific to Subversion. It's not a global ports problem. So no, nothing has been done. I wasn't aware of this problem since I only used the latest version. And you should still be able to install both, and there is not that much thing that depend on Subversion except Git SVN. Is that the one you want? Yeah. Yeah, it says you need to talk to the maintainer of Subversion so that he fix that. The patch is... Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Subversion should definitely go through the default version so you can set. And the other thing is Subversion support renaming the binaries. So Subversion, SVN becomes SVN, I don't know, 1.7 for example, and then you can have both installed without any conflict. So nobody is working on as far as I know, nobody is working on that. But I think send a PR about that, and both maintainer of Subversion should have a look at it and probably fix. Okay, thank you.
So thanks all for coming. This is the end of the BSD dev room at FOSDEM. When you go out, please take out any trash you find laying around, even if it's not your own. Thank you.